I am Kyle, and welcome to my SIOP lesson plan. Um, if this is super loud, I apologize. Please feel free to turn me down. Um, I was having trouble with my audio for the presentation, so I'm going to try to talk lower, and hopefully I don't burst your eardrums. Alright, here we go. So my student for the semester that I've been thinking about and got a chance to get to know early on in the semester. And I'm so sad that I didn't get all semester to do different projects with him and everything. Is a fifth grade male student. He is originally from Venezuela and he moved to the US at a very, very young age. Um, and moving here at a really young age helped him uh, gain some helpful English language skills that I'll get to later. But his primary language is Spanish, but he has great English. Um, and he enjoys reading and math, and primarily reading, which influenced my choice in lesson. Um, and then he also loves video games, which is very similar to um, a character that we're going to be analyzing later in the lesson. During his assessment, I gave him a 4 for comprehension, um, and we had a great conversation right off the bat, and he pretty much understood almost everything that I said to him, except for one question, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what the question was, but he kind of tilted his head and looked at me, kind of like I don't know, a cute little puppy would, and he was like, "What?" And I think I may have incorrectly said something, but just for the sake of helping me out with the project, um, I put as strategy was to repeat keywords, which is what I did in this situation. And then for fluency, I also gave him a 4, and basically he is genuinely fluent. Um, every now and then he'll uh, pause and not be able to give the correct expression. And for my strategy for that was just to be patient and allow him to find his words. And pretty much every time I did that, he got to it. And um, so rather than me correcting him every 5 seconds, like um, maybe some people would, or I've had teachers in the past do while everyone's reading in front of the class. I think it was important for his sake to just be patient with him and allow him to build the confidence to find the correct language. For vocabulary, I gave him a 5. This is what I meant by uh, coming to America at such an early age. He built great English language and great vocabulary, and I didn't see any problems there. His pronunciation was a little bit of a different story, although he's built great vocab and great fluency and comprehension. There were some times that his pronunciation got a little thick and his accent came about. It was I don't know if it's a Venezuelan or just a Spanish accent, but he would sometimes get to that thick point, and he was very open about it and was like, yeah, like sometimes that happens when I don't try. And I think it's a funny thing with him and his friends, and his friends will ask him to clarify. And so I just kindly would ask him to repeat himself, and it would really help both of us out. For grammar, I also gave him a 4. Uh, Occasionally, he makes grammatical and um, word errors, which do not obscure meaning. So it was easy to tell what he was saying, but just for his sake and helping him build up his language, I would just ask him to slow down or take a deep breath and allow him to get his full thoughts across, because I think I've even done it in this presentation. but I sometimes have my mouth work faster than my brain, so I'll stutter and stuff like that. So I definitely know where he's coming from in that situation. And he'll use words at incorrect times, and I remember always doing that when I would be reading in front of the class or when I'd get nervous and or talking in front of a stranger, which is kind of what he was doing during this time. But he and I, when I would read in front of the class, we would put the word and at moments where it shouldn't have been, or using the word they at times when you shouldn't have. So asking him to slow down really helped. So the main meat of my presentation and my lesson, and this is a very simplified version of my main lesson to keep me within the 5 slide maximum of the presentation. So I hope I included all the main points, and I hope the lesson comes across easy to you guys and to our teacher. But kind of just as the most simplified version, I said students will be able to understand the similarities and differences between two main characters in a story using a Venn diagram. Uh, and I think using a Venn diagram is very, very important uh, while reading different books as a history major. Sometimes actually using a Venn diagram really helps, and I used those strategies in elementary school, and surprisingly, they're coming up in college. So I think it's really important to get that skill, and especially for elementary schoolers to gain that skill. And included it in my main lesson plan, but I would have the teacher, if that being me or a substitute, would go to the whiteboard and they would create their own large Venn diagram, an empty Venn diagram, but um, just so the students would have it modeled for them in a very big and neat way. And then I would have the students create their own Venn diagram. Creating their own Venn diagram will allow them to do things with their hands and have something that's theirs that they can either take home or have at school that they can always look back to. And kind of the main content that we're using, or the what we're basing our lesson off of, is the book Wonder. Um, and I decided to have the students compare and contrast Augie and Julian, which are two very different yet have some very important similarities, and are very good characters to do this with. And plus, I love the book and I love both characters, even though Julian's kind of a bully. I love him. I love the book. I love the story. So I included that in this. I figured it'd be a little easier to do something that I know pretty well. I included working independently first because I want the students to gain their own confidence and to be able to deal with this content in maybe a difficult sense originally on their own first. Maybe have them talk to a partner or two and share one or more points here and there, but mainly have them working independently at first so that we can all come together as a class later on. During that working independent time, I think it's important for me or whoever the teacher is to go to the English language learner, which is would be my 5th grade student. And I think it'd be important to check in with him to make sure he's on the right path and make sure he's doing the right things and to make sure he's understanding where he's at so far. This is a good time because everyone's working independently, so we have plenty of time to go and speak with our English language learners. And then, following that independent time, we'd all come together as a class and then would all collaborate on one big Venn diagram. And students could volunteer, or the teacher could choose students to come up to the whiteboard and write their own little differences and similarities so they can participate in the class-wide Venn diagram, which will be really cool to be able to see at the end of it. But maybe even our English language learners could participate in that, and they can go right up there, whatever they want. And have students at the same time, like if they missed one or someone comes in with a really good one, the rest of the students can then copy it onto theirs. So we all have very similar differences and similarities, because having better Venn diagrams isn't the point of the lesson. It's that we all can work collaboratively. And so our English language learner can work collaboratively with the entire class and participate in the same manner as they can, so we can all learn the same lessons. And lastly, I put students will be able to show and understand how a Venn diagram can help further understand the complexity of a story. Stories are complex, even elementary school stories. They're very difficult to understand sometimes, and maybe we miss things because of cool pictures, or we miss things because Wonder talks about some cool pop culture stuff that we get infatuated with. But one of the big underlying themes of Wonder is bullying, um, and along with bullying, the book can teach compassion and kindness for both parties. And by the end of their story, Julian and Augie uh, don't exactly become the best of friends, but I think they finally understand that both of them have very difficult circumstances in very different ways. Augie has very obvious uh, hardships with just his life and his condition, and Julian has tough parents at home and can sometimes cause acting out at school, which is what he's done and taken it out on Augie. And later in the story, it's really important that Augie has compassion for Julian, and then later on, Julian has compassion and kindness for Augie. And I think that's important for elementary school students to learn, because they're getting to an age where um, technology is very much a big part of their lives, and with that, sometimes can tragically come with cyberbullying. And so I think it's important to not only learn this content, but learn really important life lessons along with our lessons as teachers. And so that's why I included a pretty deep and complex life lesson that I think is important to learn early on into this SIOP lesson plan. And basically, my simple reflection is that the SIOP model lays the groundwork for an effective lesson. Without an outline to go off of, my lesson would have been missing very key details to help my students succeed. And something that I thought was pretty funny, and um, I didn't like because it's finals week and I'm selfish or whatever, but I now understand how much time it takes for teachers to plan their lessons on a daily basis. And I was like, oh, this is so tedious and everything, but I finally understand the importance of it. And if you do it all quickly, you can miss really, really important things. Like I had been working on it for quite a while, and I was missing like a very key part of my lesson in there. And if I was doing everything quickly, I would have never included it. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed my presentation. Thank you for listening through this entire thing. I'm not sure how long the presentation was supposed to be. I'm sure I went over it, or I hope I didn't go under it. Uh, but yeah, I hope to one day use this model and maybe this lesson plan in my future career as a teacher, because I think it'll be important, and I hope teachers teach a very similar lesson nowadays. Anyways, I hope you guys had a good semester, and I hope you guys have great careers ahead of you, and best of luck.